because I had sent you all some material back
Back.
mid-July, because
you.
several council members had continued to express interest in having the swinging bridge repaired, and in order to do that, there's several things that would have to occur. First, the town does not own the bridge.
When did that happen? Because the city owned that bridge. The city of Clifton Forge
I
owned
don't
that
think
bridge.
we ever did we?
No.
The city did.
I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
No,
We just
It
fixed
got
it.
repaired back when
flood of
the
85.
storm took it out.
We repaired it.
The grant helped do it.
FEMA.
So we never owned that
No.
bridge.
Always owned by
They
CSX.
built it for the guys to walk to their shops.
Oh, now that
That's what
makes
it was for,
sense.
from Verge Street.
Not for us to be
That's-
swinging off of it.
No.
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Now,
Huh.
several years ago, when I was negotiating with CSX for some property transfers, specifically they wanted some property back at the old rail yard on a permanent basis that was part of the 33 acres that we owned. I suggested to the council's request that we would do the exchange if they would repair the bridge. They looked at it and said that it cost too much money for them to repair, and the estimate that they had was with their own forces doing it as opposed to a contract. And they said it was too much money, so that came off the table. So in order for the town to do it, we would first of all have to acquire the swinging bridge, and I'm not at all confident that they would give it to us since they haven't given us anything up to now. Once we had ownership, then it's possible that we could apply for a grant to help do the repairs. The most logical grant source would be the Virginia Department of Transportation, what they call their Transportation Alternative Funding. That's only done on an every 2-year cycle. And there is a 20% cash match required for that grant. It's actually the grant source that allowed us to do the phase of the Smith Creek Trail that runs alongside the School of the Arts, and it is in fact the grant source that will be replacing the bridge across Smith Creek with a handicapped accessible bridge. In fact, that project is moving forward, and we expect the construction to be next March to June. The bridge was evaluated back in 2013 at the town's expense, and a report was received from the gentleman who does the bridge inspections throughout the town, and he estimated at that time, and that's 2013, so 6 years ago, that it would cost $150,000 to do what he called minimal repairs, and that was with them not having done an evaluation of what I call the underprinting or the underside of the bridge, just looking at the supports on either side and the bridge itself. Because of the interest of the council, I did ask the company to give me a proposal for evaluating the bridge again, and I sent that to you all, and he broke it down into 3 phases, but the 3 phases total $12,780. They can be done, one phase at a time, and in my personal estimation, you all should not want to incur those costs unless you're serious about taking responsibility for the bridge and then looking for a source to repair it, because we would incur liability to own the bridge once it was transferred to us. When we did have a gentleman fall through one of the slats, or his leg fell through, he didn't fall all the way into the river, back in 2013, we were told by our insurance company that in spite of the fact that we didn't own it, that we needed to take immediate precautions to make sure that no one used the bridge. And so it has been posted on both sides with signage that the town put in that says closed, danger, that kind of thing. I would think that an estimate of $150,000 $100,000 made 6 years ago is going to be higher. I can't tell you how much higher. Personally, I like the idea of the swinging bridge, although we're not the only community that has one. But our finances are such that this is not something that we have wanted to tackle up to this point, but we have a different council in place now, and so I wanted to present the information to you all anew, and then you all can decide if you want to do something now, if you want to defer it, if you want me to have conversations with CSX about their willingness to give it over. That wouldn't necessarily commit us to do that, but I have not had any of those conversations at all, waiting to have you all discuss what you would like to see done at this time.
Who owns the land on the other side of the river?
CSX.
They own
On both
land
sides.
on both sides.
Yes.
On Verge Street too, yeah.
because
A lot of people think that's theirs over there, but it's CSX. Because there's buildings,
They do
as we went
think
through this before, because of buildings. There used to be a pig pen, there's gardens, but it's all CSX land.
For how long, how far away from the river?
Up to the road,
To the
it's-
road.
Yes, up to the
To the
road.
road, yeah.
Now, when we made arrangements with CSX several years ago now to put the boat ramp in, they gave the town what they call a recreational lease. They did not let us have ownership of the property. And it is very clear in the property lines that are indicated on the lease that CSX continues to own everything related to the bridge, because the lines are drawn in a way that the abutments are still a part of the CSX property.
Because we was gonna make a trade with CSX here when I first came on council, and for something for over at Verge, and part of it was Darlene and last council, we didn't want to take the ownership until they got all that stuff off, because wasn't gonna be the bad guys making everybody move
Yeah, they
the
tried,
carports
yeah,
and
they
boats.
tried to get us to take all of that strip that was on, from the river to Verge Street, but a number of the residents on Verge Street have de facto taken ownership of property on that side, so that I was down there just the other day and somebody's put up a lean-to and it has picnic tables, 3 or 4 picnic tables and chairs. I mean, they're literally
Yeah, I
using
think
the
I've seen it.
property, and CSX is not doing anything about it. Back when CS wanted us to take that land, I told them we would not consider taking it until they cleared the land, because those uses are in violation of the zoning ordinance, and they refused to do anything. That's when we went to talk about other possible exchanges, and that exchange, for those of you that weren't involved at that time, involved the town receiving 4 pieces of property from CSX for the 9 acres that we gave back to them at the old rail yard. It involved the recreational lease there, the property is about 1/3 of an acre at 4th and Ridgeway that we have marketed for development. It involved the parking lot that we now call the Loop Street parking lot. We literally took some water tower kinds of structures that were made of concrete off of that site, made recreational and other kinds of parking there, and then the building that houses Uppercuts was also in CSX ownership, and that was given over to us. Those 4 properties became town-owned or leased in the case of the boat ramp, in exchange for that roughly 9 acres that we gave back to them, which in fact was their wheelhouse and what they call the White House, that big white building that's over there in the rail yard.
How much was all 3 phases together?
$12,780. The first phase was $3,910. Second phase, which is the rough cost estimate, $2,650, and then the capacity analysis, which is really the structural analysis, $6,220. And I'm not an engineer, but I think you'd need all 3 at some point before you made a final
And
decision.
there's a possibility, even after we spent that we wouldn't get the ownership of
Well,
it?
she's first
Or the
gonna
grant.
talk to.
No, we get the ownership
Yeah,
first.
no, that's what I
Get the
wanted to,
ownership
yeah.
Well, I don't know
first.
that I'd want the ownership as much as I'd want to understand the terms under which CSX was willing to transfer, because if they wanted a huge sum of money, and we couldn't negotiate away from
But there
that.
is, what I mean, there's a chance we still won't get the grant too.
Right, oh yes, no, there's no assurance on grants at all. And as I say, it's gone to a every 2-year cycle. They used to give out the transportation alternative grants on an annual basis, and they stopped doing that. Some people thought that this one might qualify under some historic category that VDOT has, but this bridge is not historic, because the bridge that is there is the one that was replaced, or it is the replacement, I should say, back in 1985. So we couldn't go for historic designation, which would put us probably in a higher category for funding.
Yeah.
But it's an expensive proposition, no matter how you look at it. Let's assume that $150,000 has been constant for 6 years. You're still going to need to come up with $30,000 of local money if we were successful in the transportation alternative grant process.
Will we pay the 12,000, is that outside of the grant?
Oh, yes.
If we got one, so we're looking at spending $12,000, then we might get a grant that pays 80%.
That's what I mean, that's what I'm
And
saying.
we don't know what terms that CSX would be
So you're
willing
talking
to.
$40,000 to $50,000 to build the bridge. How much of the land along the city, the town of Clifton Forge, do they own all the land along the river all the way to the bridge that's way down there? That Highway 60 goes on, or 220, whatever.
They own everything at the end of Verge Street that then continues, and they have trucks that go down that way. There's land there. They own all the land along the river that we can see. Then when you cross the A Street Bridge, they own some of that land, and then the rest of it, as you probably know, has residences on it, and there's a stretch that kind of is a big boulevard between Verge Street and what's that side street? I can't remember anymore. But we have what some people call the Easter egg houses, because they're pink and blue and yellow.
Part of my question was, I was wondering if we could move the bridge down to land that we already own, but we don't own any of that.
We don't own any of it, no.
Along,
No, the railroad,
on either side. of the
no,
road.
sir.
So, you know that Railroad Avenue?
Yeah.
Okay, way back up in there. There
Yeah,
used to be
that-
a red light district. So who owns that? They got, you remember that? And they got the trains. Well, no, there was stuff down there, but now they got old trains, abandoned
That all
trains. All of that
belongs to-
is theirs too?
Well, that's all belongs to the railroad, although some of that has the, what I call the derelict pieces of equipment, they have leased to the C&O Historical Society, and that's where they store.
Oh.
That's where they have
It used to
the
be
old turntable
homes
that was
and
removed,
businesses down there.
is under there too.
Well, let me ask this. What, no, since nobody owns it now, what happens if somebody goes over the barricade we got and gets hurt?
It's on
Who-
them, 'cause it's closed.
It's on CSX because we've done what we need to do to protect the town, because we've been made aware of the issue. We also notified CSX when it happened, and they wanted to contend that it wasn't ours, and they sent us a copy of an action by the council back in 1952, and it's clear from reading that, both by our insurers and others, that it in no way makes the bridge the property of the town. So it still is theirs, and the deed that they drew, as I mentioned earlier, for the recreational lease for the boat ramp makes it very clear that that's still their
So
ownership.
when the guy, I ain't gonna say his name, when he
I know
fell,
who you're talking
It was Greg Key.
Yeah, we all know
I
it's
just want to put his name on camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wipe that out.
Erase it. But when he fell through it, hurt his leg, who paid for his medical bill?
We did, or our insurance company.
Why?
That's a
Because we
nuisance
hadn't posted
claim.
it.
Well, we hadn't posted it because we didn't know,
Was that bad?
and it wasn't, as I understand it, and I could be corrected, he stepped on what I'll call a slat, and it broke. It's not that it was known that there was a broken slat there. But we weren't inspecting that swinging bridge. We didn't have any responsibility to do that.
Well, based upon what I've heard, if we're looking at a minimum of $40,000+, I'm no longer interested in replacing the swinging bridge. And if the CSX wants to tear the swinging bridge down, I'm not going to join.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Is there any grants, like the foundation or anything, that would help pay for the studies?
I think anything that we would apply to would want the town to make a commitment that it would take the additional steps. So that we would have to be prepared to say, as a part of an application process, that if you give us the money to do these studies, we'll commit to getting ownership and doing the repairs. Otherwise, I think they would not consider a grant application. I could be wrong, but my experience with grants would lead me to believe that would be the case.
So VDOT does have a grant to fix bridges, or
They have,
Pedestrian bridges.
well, they have what they call, this would not be traditional VDOT money. They have a pot of money that is federal funds that is called Transportation Alternatives. And it's what actually did some of the improvements at the Heritage Center several years ago. We had to administer that grant because those grants can only go to a locality even if the beneficiary is not the locality. So there was work done at the Heritage Center, as I mentioned. The Smith Creek Trail that we have built alongside of the School of the Arts is a transportation alternative grant. And the replacement bridge that we will be doing that connects all of that to the jungle area will be a transportation alternative. In some communities, they use them for sidewalks, for trails. It is to hopefully get people off of the road is really what that grant pot is all about.
But nothing for the bridge. I mean, that's to get people off the roads
The
too.
Clifton Forge
Well, I'm saying we could apply to that source, but there's no guarantee.
Right.
committee that we have, do they have anywhere near that amount?
Who?
Clifton Forge Economic Development.
No, sir.
Well,
The EDA.
would it be possible to have a public hearing on this since the public is the one asking for the bridge? I'm not in here asking for the bridge. I don't think you were either, Ron.
Well, I was bringing it up because
Sort of
it's constituent
right.
wanted to.
So would it be
replace.
possible to,
You all can have a public comment advertised, which wouldn't be an official public hearing because you don't have an action. But we have done that in the past. In fact, before the council made the decision to allow the buildings to be torn down at the old rail yard, we had some engineering studies done, and the gentleman made the presentation, and we had public comment.
Had it on the pump,
would you
Green
mind,
Monster
would you
too.
mind doing that? So all of those people that want the swinging bridge, and then once they hear what's involved,
Could we put a grant in?
rather than me speaking on their behalf saying, oh no, we don't want to do it. I didn't know that part, Dave, thank you. I didn't realize that was for the railroad specifically, because we use it all the time, just a shortcut to the Fireman's Festival over there. But I would, if we could do that, and if you guys are in agreement.
And nobody comes and.
Well, nobody, they don't care.
Then they don't care.
Right, they don't
We do
care.
what we want.
Right.
Should we wait and see whether it's even available? See, I don't think the railroad's gonna give us anything.
No,
I think it's
don't
all a moot
I doubt if they do either.
My question is, if we
I'd say
did
if
get
I give it
this,
to you.
well, they
Because if
give-
somebody gets hurt on it, I guess they're responsible
Right,
now.
because people are still
Well,
hanging
some-
out
A
down
good
there.
example of CSX, the fact that the piece of land that we've agreed we would purchase on Mr. Huff's behalf, with him providing the money,
Right.
is a landlocked piece, about an acre in size. It's landlocked by everything else that we own, but CSX owns it, and they're charging Mr. Huff $40,000 for it, when they can't use it either. But they
Yeah.
value very highly what they own, and the fact that they refuse to consider repairing the bridge, even though it belongs to them, and they've acknowledged that by making the estimates and everything, says to me that there would be a price. I have no idea what it would be.
Yeah, so that adds to the.
But I have not,
40,000
I've not had that discussion with them
thought
either.
about. So it could easily be 80,000.
It could be.
But to buy the bridge, the lane?
Our part,
Yeah.
no, the whole thing,
Easily.
our part of replacing, repairing that bridge, by the time you add in all the expenses the town of Clifton Forge would have,
Between
would
80 and
easily
100.
be,
Between 80 and 100.
yeah.
Dave, if we,
That's assuming we got a grant that paid 80% of it.
if we did buy the bridge and owned it, what would we have to pay for insurance on a yearly basis?
It would just come under our
Well,
blanket policy.
It'd come
We'd
under a
add it,
blanket?
and the insurance company would evaluate it. We don't show it as a listing that we have currently.
Since I've been here and talked to people about it from the railroad and everything else, I'm not getting rid of it. They'd rather have it and taunt us than give it to us. That's
If somebody
human
falls
idea.
over and gets hurt or killed.
Yeah, then they might. I mean, if I was in their shoes, I'd get rid of it just so that it's not there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask, wonder if there's a grant that we could throw that in, and Vulcan, on Vulcan Street, or commercial, that bridge there, to fix both of them. Putting that bridge in may help with some kind of grant, 'cause that,
That's not gonna be a transportation alternative grant. We'd have to put that in separately under the standard VDOT approval, and I'm afraid that because of the limited amount of traffic, it wouldn't score very well. But again, we could try things, but I shared with you that latest evaluation.
Donnie, what would you say the railroad would want for that area to pay for it?
No,
I have no idea. They're not very easy to work with.
No.
Okay, what do y'all wanna do?
I would go for public hearing.
I go to the public hearing,
What the people
Let
want.
the people just,
Public
then make the
comment.
decision.
where they wanna spend their.
Would you
Yeah,
wanna
well,
do
tax
that at,
dollars.
would
If
you
it doesn't get done, then it's not our fault because it
Right.
didn't get done because
Well, they asked for
nobody,
it, so let
yeah,
them
nobody
come
was,
and- yeah.
thought the town should spend 40,000 for it.
Right.
do you want to have it as part of one of your regular meetings, or would you want to have a separate meeting just for that purpose?
Regular meeting,
Regular meeting. Ron, you know we're going to one meeting a month now.
yes,
Okay.
good.
I figured you'd like that.
Still doesn't completely solve.
Every other month.
All right, do you want to do that as early as your September meeting, or you want to schedule it for October? I do
Get it
have, all
over.
I think the sooner the better.
Sooner the better.
Get it
That
off,
way,
either put it on the plate or get it
right.
off.
right. Well, we do have a presentation already scheduled for your
September.
one meeting in September, which is the regional health directors coming to talk about.
Dr. Harper.
Yes.
So we done went to one, or we have to bring that up as an ordinance?
The ordinance, we have asked Dave to prepare, but you have a meeting the 10th of September, and that's the meeting that I'm referring to. I haven't gone beyond that.
So could we have a called meeting on the 17th as a work session to do that? Which have
You
this
could if
open
you wanted
hearing?
to.
Just get it out, make it something separate out of the road. Let's have it at 6 o'clock and get it over with. Hear what the people want to say and do. 'Cause
So
this is,
in addition to the one on the 10th, have a promotion.
that'll be 2 in 1 month.
And the only item of business would likely
Yes,
be this.
the public hearing.
When I do that, on a special, just do it all at one time?
Okay.
Not public hearing, public comment.
Public comments, okay.
There's certain advertising requirements if you have a public hearing that we wouldn't need to do. We could still get the word out, but
So just to do it all on the 10th?
expensive advertising.
That's what I do, instead of calling two.
I
One
don't
for
think
nothing
there's
but-
gonna be a whole lot of people to talk. It's not gonna take a
I
long
don't think
time.
they'll come, they won't, well, I'm not, you're on right now.
I
I
agree.
got nothing.
Yeah.
I agree.
So where are we on a separate meeting on the, what would be the
No,
17th?
with the regular
Okay,
meeting.
okay.
Now, you do the public hearing before the meeting's called to order?
No.
Public hearing you do, I don't know about the public comment.
Public
Where
comments?
does the public
Go on
comment
a regular-
fall?
That just goes
You
with the
can,
comments. at the
you
end of
can
the meeting.
schedule that whenever you want. So if you wanted to have a public comment on just this item, you could schedule that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but you could schedule that at 6 and then have your regular meeting at 7.
That works for me.
Good with
We
me.
would just advertise it as that. Is that what you all want to do? Have it
Yeah.
at 6
Okay.
on the 10th?
Good enough.
You're gonna call me, Ron, and remind me?
I was thinking whether you want to call me for this
Don't
meeting.
forget, be here at 6 instead of 7.
Well, I'll make sure that Angela sets up. And of course, we'll put advertisement out about the public comment meeting. And then you would want a presentation at that public comment, similar to what I have told you all about the situation, circumstances, what would be
I
involved
think
and
so.
costs.
That
Okay.
way they'll have the knowledge, you
Okay.
know. and
I just
then
want to
they
be
can make a
prepared to make whatever
determination.
marks you
Is
want.
that where they want their taxpayer dollars to go?